This is Fresh Courage with Jason Rogers, where we dive deep into the stories of inspiring individuals to gain your own fresh courage. Well, Mom and Dad, here we sit together. Thank you so much for being on the show with us this morning, and really appreciate your willingness to do that. I know it was a little bit of a morning drive, but here we are. So for all the listeners and the viewers, this is Ken and Delmy Rogers, my wonderful parents. And I think when I first thought about what I wanted to do and who I wanted to highlight on this show, you guys were some of the very first people that came to mind. And fresh courage is something that I feel you two have both demonstrated, both individually and collectively as a couple. And so I'm excited to be able to jump into your stories and to inspire those listeners and viewers here today. So thank you, Mom and Dad.
It's great to be here.
Yes, it's great to be here. Thank you for asking us.
Of course. I know, Mom, you're a little bit hesitant at first, and I appreciate your willingness to push through and to do this, because for many years I've had this thought, this idea of I want to be able to capture Mom and Dad's story, and I want to do it in a fashion, in a way that we can look back at it, not just from a family perspective, but also be able to share it with other people that may not really know the story behind the story even, right? I think when people know the Rogers family, they say, oh, Delmy Rogers, she is the wonderful Central American Latin woman that just is such a huge heart. And she's a friend to everybody. And they look at Dad and they say, man, that man is just an incredible person. And he's blessed beyond measure to have found a Delmy Rogers, and Delmy Rogers is blessed beyond measure to have found a Kenneth Rogers. So being your son, I'm so grateful that you had your story, that you went through the challenges and obstacles in your life, and that through that produced not just me and my brother and my sister, but also just a beautiful family and a great story. So we'll jump right in if you guys don't mind. Dad, I'd really like to start with you and talk a little bit about your background, your upbringing, and how you grew up. Actually, pretty close to here, up in Idaho.
Right. I was born in Twin Falls. My dad was a pharmacist there. He was recently out of pharmacy school. I'd worked in Salt Lake City for a while. And while he was in Twin Falls, he got the idea that he'd like to advance his career and decided to apply for dental school. So when I was about 3 or 4 years old, we moved to Portland, Oregon, where the dental school was. Mm-hmm. And we lived there for 4 years, and that was right at the beginning of the Second World War. So when by the time Dad got out of school, he was the war was in full swing, and he went immediately into the Army. Mm-hmm. We moved to Riverside, California for a few months, and then moved to Nampa, Idaho, where my mother's brother lived, and we established ourselves there.
Excellent. And that's where I remember you referencing most of your childhood was Nampa.
That's where I considered my growing up place.
Yep. Yeah. And then at senior year, right, a year removed perhaps, or 2 years removed perhaps from high school, you decide you want to serve an LDS mission. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, the decision was made long before that. Dad had served a 3.5-year mission in New Zealand, where his mother had been born. And it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that I was going to go on a mission. And it wasn't someone else's decision.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a natural thing for me to want to follow in Dad's footsteps and serve a mission. And I thought I might go to New Zealand.
Oh, that would be an interesting blessing in itself, right? Having Grandpa served there, his brother served there, as I remember, and they were also mission companions at the while they were there for a short period of time. So, so you decided to serve a mission while long before that, and when you went through the process and you got your mission call, and it said the Central American Mission, what came to your mind?
Well, I admit I actually knew what Central America was, and I didn't think it was Minnesota. So I was overjoyed because in high school I had taken a couple of years of Spanish. I enjoyed it a lot. My friends and I spoke Spanish all the time whenever we could together, and all of us got called to Spanish-speaking missions.
Excellent. So I'm going to pause right there and get Mom her take here on growing up in El Salvador, and then we'll see where these stories start to interject there. So Mom, where did you grow up, and what were some of the memories that you had as a child growing up?
Well, I grew up in Santa Tecla. It's a small town in El Salvador. And that I remember most is my grandmother. That was really close to us.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very strong Catholic. Mm. All my family was very strong Catholic. And I went to the school over there for 5th to 6th grade. And when I was 8 years old, I was baptized in the LDS church. And then what I remember is I was seven and a half years old when the missionaries came to El Salvador. I think that was in 1955, around that, because I get baptized in 1956,
Okay.
if I remember. And but growing up after that was very difficult for us because all my family was Catholic, and for my parents to accept the gospel. For us, we were kind of a child, and but the thing that was hard for us because people, they were mocking us. They were even my cousins, my uncle.
It was a very new thing for them to accept.
Yes.
These Americans coming, they have this new church. It's very different from the tradition of the Catholic Church, and so it was very perhaps uncomfortable, or just people didn't really know what to think. I would imagine, right?
Right. Yes. They thought that they were spies, because in those years, the elders, they use a little in the hat, and
they look like detectives.
They look like a
something.
detective or something. That's what they look, and bringing a religion that was really weird for them.
Sure.
That's what I think about it now, and but my grandma was alive. My mother was afraid to accept the gospel at the moment.
Sure.
After my grandmother passed away, my mother decided to baptize. And month later, we were three, my two brothers and me, we got baptized. And but it was hard to keep and go to the church, because my aunt, the only sister of my mother, they're very close. The two, they were very close.
Yeah, it must have been hard for her.
It was hard for my mother, hard for us,
Right.
like a child. And well, I don't know you want to talk about.
So then you join the church as a child. Your family is starting to they're conflicted, right? They're wanting to support, I'm sure, and they love you regardless, and everything that they did was out of love. But it was a challenge for you guys at the particular time.
Yeah, it was.
So then in comes this elder that decided to serve a mission from Twin Falls / Nampa, Idaho, that comes into the area, into Santa Tecla.
Yeah.
By the name of Elder Rogers, right? So Elder Rogers, Dad, tell us what's your perspective? What was your experience like as a missionary in El Salvador with a new convert family like the Juarez family and Hermana Pacas?
It was, well, a lot of new things for me, because it was my first assignment as a senior companion. I was the branch president. And Delmy's father was my first counselor. And we arrived on Good Friday. And my first experience of the day was to watch the parade down the streets of Santa Tecla, with all the traditional parade, and I got quite an education just on.
No, I bet.
just on that doing. But as we developed and began to teach in the area, and following the work that the previous missionaries had done in that area, we had good reception, and the people both resented us to some extent, but they respected us also, because we made an effort to respect them and their religion, and most of those people were really good people.
Good, absolutely. I mean, that's what I have found by most faith-based people, no matter what faith that they follow, that is home to them in their heart. I think most people that practice a faith are good people, and it's I found that also on my mission. And so so you're in Santa Tecla, you create this relationship, this wonderful relationship with the Juarez family, particularly with my grandmother, with Zoila. And talk to us a little bit about that relationship, how that evolved into grandma and grandpa, meaning your parents, helping out in terms of offering up their home to have my aunt Dinora come up and be with them in Washington. And how was that? How did that come about?
Well, that first day when we arrived in Santa Tecla, I guess I fell in love with Delmy's sister. She was 6 years old, and just a delightful person. And over the years, or months and years, that I was on the mission and afterwards, I corresponded with virtually all the members of the family. Delmy, Dinora, her sister, but mostly with mother, Zoila, but also with her brothers, Eliseo and Arrigo. So with 5 of the members of the family I used to correspond with regularly over many years. And I was always aware of what was going on in their lives. It's just a very special family to me.
Yeah. And there are those special families that you connect with while serving a mission. I know that feeling, and I know what that's like. And it's really, for me, it was very apparent as I was growing up that this was our family story, that this was the inception of the family story. Was Dad went to serve a mission in El Salvador. He met Mama Zoila and the family and fell in love with this family and did everything that he could, even after he was back, graduated from BYU, went and got your job in San Diego, which you worked for 40 plus years. And as you were there, continued to correspond with this beautiful family. So Mom, I'm gonna go back to you. There was a time when Dad was working in San Diego, and there was a time when your mom had to leave the house in El Salvador. Your education was cut short in El Salvador. You did everything you could to try and earn money and raise the family, since unfortunately your father decided to leave the family. And what was that experience like for you?
Well, that was really hard because I was in the school, and then my mother told me that my brother and me, we have to stop going to school, and we're going to continue the school at night, work during the day. By this time, I was 15 years old. And to support the family, had my mom. And then after years, my mother was enough money, decided to come to the United States. And then she worked here and sent money to us, even that I was working, my brother too.
Yeah.
And we were helping with the little ones, with myself, because we were 7 in the family.
Yep.
And then after a few years, my mother, I asked her to come back, and we're going to come here.
So you traded places.
We traded places with her.
So you said, okay, I'm old enough, I can take your place and work for you in the United States. Yeah. I'll send money back, you come back and watch the kids.
Yes.
So you come across to the U.S., you have your work permit, you come through, you're able to work. How did Dad help you in that time?
Okay. When I came by bus with my aunt, and they took us like 5 days traveling from El Salvador to here to Tijuana. And when I was here, my mother sent me the phone number to Kenneth Rogers, the Elder Rogers. We call him that. And this is the address, Elder Rogers. When you get there, you call him. And that's what I did. I called him, and he was waiting probably for that call. And he came to the border to meet me. And unfortunately, my aunt wasn't able to go through, to cross, even though she has her visa. But the immigrant, I don't know.
Didn't let her go
Didn't
through.
let her go through.
But miraculously let you go through.
Yes. And I came with Kenneth. And then he took me to where my mother was
working and staying.
And living there. Yes.
And that was in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, they was in I think yes, it's an area of Angeles.
Somewhere
I know
around
there is somewhere there, Northridge, or if I remember.
I want to touch on some really cool experiences that you had. At least I think they are. And I think as a family, we discovered how cool they really were. Some time when you were working in Los Angeles, you had the privilege of somehow connecting yourself with the Hollywood elites of the time, where you had been an assistant of sorts to, you always told me it was some actor's wife. I don't know who the actor was, right? Or some Hollywood person, right?
Yes.
So talk to us about
Producer.
that. Producer.
And director.
He was a director.
Once we found out it was a producer and director that we all love and appreciate, which is Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And you were a personal assistant / house cleaner and all of the above. Companion.
I was more companion than her.
Of his
because
wife.
she has a lot of maids, a lot of people there do their work.
Yep.
But I was more with her, And it was a really nice job that I had with her because she was a really nice person. And I noticed there was a lot of, the house was a beautiful home, came a lot of people to film in there, and maybe some commercial or something. And by the time I was maybe 18 years old, and she was a very, I appreciate that because when they have big parties, something, she was always telling me, okay, tonight we're going to have a big party, but I'm going to send you home, and I don't want you to stay here. But tonight, Rob Hudson is coming, and I want you to meet him. And I was kind of excited. I'm really happy. And I say, what are you going to do? You go chase around, and what are you going to do? Oh, you can go just cleaning trash. The
ashtrays.
The trash, yes. And that's what you, because I don't know what you can do, but just for a half an hour, and then you go with your way to take you home.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. She was a really nice lady.
Wow.
And yes, the only thing that I was doing was being with her, helping her when she's going to go parties at night, to pick up her dress, where her dress is going to use it.
Yep.
And but our short time with her.
What a fun memory to look back on, and even at that time, while you were in that moment, in those moments, I'm sure she made you feel welcome, and she made you feel appreciated, and it was just so fun as a family to finally know who that producer was that you'd always talk about, and you saw a picture of her, and you said, that is the lady. I don't know if we were watching TV or a magazine or whatever, and you said, that's her. And so we did some kind of Google image search, I think, or I don't know what, and found out that was Alfred Hitchcock's wife.
Right.
So
I met him. He was a really nice guy,
Wow.
He comes home once in a while. There was by the time that I was working there. And she feel lonely. That's why probably she find somebody to be a companion with her. To her.
Well, wonderful. And so you're working in LA. Dad is working in San Diego. Years go by, and Dad's still single. Right, Dad?
Right. Yeah. Not that I hadn't been dating, but just never made the right hookup,
Well, in all fairness, Mom really wasn't in your plans at all because of the age difference, right? 10 year age difference.
That's right. And but by that time I was old enough that the age difference was percentage-wise wasn't that great anymore.
Yep.
I started to pay more attention to her. I'd drive up once in a while to see her, and initially she was living with her sister and family, and they moved out, and so she was there, and it just kind of developed naturally. I started to see things in that girl that I had overlooked before, and when I finally came to my senses, it was apparent that this was somebody to reckon with.
Yeah, absolutely. Mom, from your perspective, how was that, having been friends with Dad for so many years, and then all of a sudden these feelings may start changing, or was that how it felt for you, or was it a different experience?
Well, I think I'm going to now touch about religion, about I'm a person that I pray a lot. Always my Heavenly Father is with me. And I know He helped me a lot. And those years I was feeling lonely, and I want to marry with a good person and ask my Heavenly Father with prayer, fasting, to find a man like him.
Like who?
Like Kenneth Rogers, I say. Like, I want to find a man like him. I don't ask you, Heavenly Father, him. I ask him for somebody.
Like him?
Like him. Because he is my friend.
Yeah.
Because I love him like my brother, too.
Yeah.
And because we were very good friends. At that time, I didn't think about that. Just when I see him, he told me that the way that he was treating me, but to him, I was his little sister. Mm-hmm. But he thought, and the way that he was feeling toward me was changing. And then I thought, oh, God, Heavenly Father, I asked you for somebody like him, but not him.
I wanted somebody like him, but it's him?
And yes, and then I thought of what? And it was it's because I don't want the friendship that we have, that was
it was important to you. You didn't want to risk it.
Very important. I don't want to risk that.
Yeah.
That friendship.
Yeah. Well, I am certainly glad that you did decide to risk the friendship, because not only are you guys friends, but you are my parents. And so then you guys decide to get married. You proposed to her, I imagine, Dad, in one of the most romantic ways possible. Is that right?
I think it got to the point where we both said, if we're going to keep this friendship going, we better get married. and it just felt right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had been dating other girls around San Diego, and they were wonderful girls. But
they weren't Mom, though.
But they weren't. They weren't the right girls.
Yeah.
And when I finally decided that this could lead to something really great, I felt good about it. And I had previous experiences in dating where I thought that some girl was going to be the one, and as soon as things started to get a little serious, I would have the opposite kind of feeling. That no, this is not it.
Yeah.
And this time there was no question that everything was right about this.
Yeah.
And so we dated, we committed to each other, and we got married.
Excellent. And you got married in the Los Angeles Temple. And soon thereafter, my brother was born, and then I was born after that. And you raised us in a beautiful place in San Diego, California, where Dad continued to, if there was anything that was more steady and true in Dad's life, it was his work at 40 plus years in the same place. And that is not unheard of nowadays. And so shifting gears here a little bit, guys, as you're raising a family now together, and there's a point where I'm sure mom with 3 kids at home, one in middle school going to high school, one 2 younger kids, mom needed some help, right? Mom was like, I need some backup here. So Mama Zoila, your mother, decided to come and move into the house, and you guys invited her to live with you. Talk about that, Mom. How was that for you as a mom raising your family and having your mother there with you?
Well, that was great. When my mother used to come back and forth, because by that time she was living in Canada. Mm-hmm. And because I have 3 brothers over there, and she was with them. But then when my youngest brother went to his mission, and she came here for a while. By that time, because when she moved, apparently was when you were born, mm-hmm. because she was in El Salvador visiting my aunt, and then she came, and then I asked her, why you don't stay with us? She went to Canada just to get her stuff or talk to my brothers, and then she moved permanently with us. And she helped me to grow up my mm-hmm. 3 kids, helping me with them. That was great. And I think that's the way you learn the Spanish too, because she was talking Spanish that's with right. you all the time.
I remember speaking Spanish more as a child than I spoke English because of you and Mama Zoila. And I even have audio tapes of me as I would say probably 3 years old or something, mm-hmm. And speaking Spanish fluently. Yeah. And so it was certainly a blessing. And it's funny because growing up in San Diego, as we all know, right, the Hispanic culture is alive and well. And I wouldn't say most, but a lot of my classmates were Mexican. And Mom would come in and volunteer in my class. And when they'd find out that was my mother, the boy whose name is Jason Rogers has a mother named Delmy Rogers Juarez, who speaks very little English at that particular time. You spoke very little English and mostly Spanish. The Mexican kids in my class would start speaking to me, and they'd get a kick out of it that I would be able to speak back to them fluently in Spanish. And it was just those were some of the funnest memories I have as a kid, is you volunteering in my classes, and me being able to just really be my full true self with all my classmates, and enjoying that part of the culture with them and with you. So, and then we grow up, and new chapters are written, right? We had the fortune of having Mama Zoila in our home for, goodness, Dad, how many years? It had to have been
30 years.
30
plus.
It had to have been over 30 years. And this is where I may get a little emotional. Dad, I've known you to be a man that is very steady in his emotions, and very, how can I say, very, very unemotional, very cerebral in your thought process and the way that you process things, process events, challenges in your life, and obstacles. And I've seen you navigate through a lot of different things where many people would not act that calm, I guess you could say. And I remember the night that Mama Soila was fading from this life to the next, and we were all singing hymns, and we were there. It was a beautiful time. She was in her room, and for the very first time in my entire life, I saw Dad weeping. And you said something that hit me really hard, and it was, I feel like I'm somehow responsible for this happening, and not so much about her death happening, but for the miracle of our family happening. And I just want to tell you that that was a profound moment for me, because I'd never seen you weep the way you wept that day.
Well, it was I guess a poignant moment for me also, because after the many years of friendship with that woman who became my mother-in-law, it was difficult to see her go, but it was also important that I suppose that my weeping would not have been from sadness totally, because it was as much a joy to realize that even though I wasn't going to be able to see her for a while, but that we would eventually be reunited. My mother had passed away by that time, and those were two women that both my wife and I had great respect for. Strangely, soon after we had been married, and my wife was in a gathering of some of the sisters in our ward, and they were going around, and each one was saying, well, who was the person that they respected most? And the strange thing was that Delmy said she named my mother as the person who had been so influential that she felt that way about her. Both of our mothers were very special.
Yeah, absolutely. And Grandma Myrtle Rogers, I've heard countless stories about, and unfortunately didn't have the privilege and blessing to meet her. And will be a sweet reunion at that time when it comes. But Mom and Dad, there's so much now that has happened, transitioning from that time. I think that was a chapter in an era that lasted quite a while there in San Diego, and most recently now, within the last year, you guys made a move together to be closer to us, my brother and I, up here in Utah and Idaho. And I know it's been a little bit of a transition, but we are so grateful that you are here, that we get to spend more time with you, that our kids now are able to spend time with Nana and Papi, and they can have those wonderful memories with you that I had with my grandparents. I remember going to St. George and spending time with Grandpa Rogers, and the memories I have there. And I can only imagine what my kids will be able to share about you guys and the home that you've been able to create. You both have demonstrated fresh courage in so many areas of your life and overcoming challenges, and not just overcoming, but long suffering is a word that comes to mind. Dad, I can't imagine how it would have felt for a man to have been yearning and longing to have the next step in his life fulfilled, and not being able to fulfill that up until that point of you were, being married and in your mid-40s. I remember as a newlywed wanting so badly to be a dad, and took us 9 years to actually realize that blessing. And Mom, for you to have the fresh courage to leave your family in El Salvador to come to the United States, to have only $20 in your pocket at one point to your name, and just feeling like you had $20 in a prayer, and you leaned on those prayers, and the Lord has been so merciful and has granted us the opportunity to be a family here as we are because of, I really feel your faithfulness and your courage. So any last parting words before we end? Mom, I'll start with you. Any last parting words that you'd like to share with us before we close?
Well, I didn't talk about when I was little, young, when we moved to Guatemala. Mm-hmm. And the reason we moved to there is because for religion,
you had more of a support.
No, we don't have any support. And it was very hard for my parents and for us to live the way that we were living over there in El Salvador, in Santa Tecla, because the people were a strong Catholic, and there was a little kind of persecution with some
families in the area that wouldn't sell you food at the markets.
We don't sell the market, and the priest came to the house to tell us to stop, because my mother started doing family home evenings, and then inviting people to come, gathering people, and make food and give food to people, and that's why they don't like the people from the church. They don't like that.
Sure.
And that's why they want to stop that and start not treating us well.
And so your memories of
my memories when we moved to Guatemala, they was my best years in the church.
Mm. Who are some of those people that you remember that were so impactful for you?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Pinedas and the Amados. Carlos Amado, he was 70s when he grew up, and we were really close friends with them, with the Pinedas and other people really strong in the church, and they helped us a lot. But we had them years later. We had to come back to El Salvador, and things changed by that time, but not at all.
Yeah,
there was really a little bit hard too again.
Well, thank you, Mom, for sharing your story. Your conversion to the church is pivotal. It's a hinge point in your life. The memories you have in Guatemala of being able to worship freely and to have a community. Your experience moving to the United States and going through all those hardships, and eventually finding support in love and companionship through your marriage with Dad and raising us as a family in San Diego. So thank you for the courage you demonstrate and that you continue to be a light and an example to us. Dad, any last words before we wrap up here?
Well, I noticed you used the term fresh courage.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike you, an entrepreneur, I'm a person who likes the stability, and I've always lived a life that has had. I've tried to make it this way to avoid unnecessary risks, and again, it caused me to think. There's a couple of ways to interpret what fresh courage could be. And in some cases, it's I need courage now because I've lost my courage, and if I'm going to go forward, I'm going to need to generate some courage. And my own experience has been in trying to keep the courage that I have fresh all the time and not lose it, so that when I needed it, I would have a supply of it. So I'm not saying that being a risk taker and an entrepreneur is better or worse, or of being more of a non-risk taker is better or worse. It's just two different approaches to life, and and I look back and yes, I've had plenty of times when I've had to take risks, but I tried to make them calculated risks, so that I can avoid the problems that I should be able to avoid.
Yep.
And yet I respect greatly those who take the risks, and we all have things that we wish we had done differently at some time or another, and we're all responsible for our own lives, and at times do have to make changes. But I've tried to live a life of faith, and that began with my parents, who were like Nephi's, goodly parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that set the stage for the way that I approached people. I had faith in people, my parents, God, my government officials, my teachers, my church leaders, my friends, and for the most part, it was faith well placed.
Yep.
But it helped me to keep a steady life, and when unexpected things happened that were unpleasant, I had enough courage to overcome that, and without having to make some radical change and regenerate that courage.
I think that's such a beautiful perspective, Dad. And I think we can really end there, which is whether you are in a place whether anybody is in a place where they need to either generate fresh courage because they may be out, or if they are able to keep the courage that they have fresh, let us take it and let us move forward. I love you guys. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad, for doing this. This is such a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.